Welcome everyone. Hello. Thank you for joining us for our final conference session in this series of workshops over the last 3 weeks. My name is Lori Gillis. I'm with the Atlantic Presenters Association. And I'm joining you today from the unceded and traditional territories of the Mi'kmaq in Jabuktuk, which is also known as Halifax, and which is the big harbor here in Nova Scotia. I am very fortunate to live and work on these lands, and I thank the elders and caretakers of this land every day for that opportunity and honor. And I also wanted to share with you, I guess a couple of weekends ago on our local CBC radio show, Saturday morning, I woke up and turned it on, and they were playing Jeremy Dutcher and Yo-Yo Ma playing the Mi'kmaq honor song. And I also wanted to, I just thought, what an amazing way to wake up every day. We should wake up that way, I think. And I just also wanted to give thanks and acknowledge those elders that continue the language and culture of the Mi'kmaq, and those artists who share it with us. I am very grateful for that. And so thank you to those elders. Welcome again, everybody. I am really happy that to present to you our closing session of our conference, sorry. And it's a co-presented with Kapakoa, which we're really excited about. It's part of their reboot conference. It's kind of their kickoff day today. And you can still join that digital arts conference if you like. We'll put the registration link in the chat for you if you want to check out their amazing lineup of workshops and showcases. It's a fantastic conference over the next 2 weeks. And both of the sessions this week were also featured as part of the Yukon Innovation Week. Again, if you're interested in any of those events, that conference continues later this week. You can check that out. We'll post that link too. This conference is a culmination of a 3-year-long journey called Making Tomorrow Better, Taking Action in a Digital World, which has been targeted to the performing arts sector, but also recognized for its practical knowledge and sharing in other parts of the arts and culture sector. So whether you're visual or any other arts sector worker, I think you have found some sort of learning in this 3-year project. So this particular conference, intensive 3 weeks succession, draws inspiration from the last couple of years of our practical workshops. We've done master classes, coaching sessions, and overall, we've had about 3,000 participants from across the country. So today we come to the crystal ball moment of the sector, so no pressure to our panelists, but it's a wider conversation about what's next. Digital technology trends, adopt or avoid. I also want to recognize that this work is funded by the Canada Council for the Arts through their Digital Strategy Fund, and presented by a national partnership of some pretty amazing organizations that I would like to recognize. So the BC Touring Council, the Manitoba Arts Network, N3 Yukon Arts Centre, the Northern Arts and Culture Centre, and Island Mountain Arts. And it's been fabulous to work with those folks over the last few years, bringing Inga's knowledge and her connections to folks across the country. Just a few housekeeping notes in terms of Zoom etiquette. Please use the chats for comments and questions throughout the workshop. I think there's a fair number of us here today, so that's probably the best way to communicate with us, but there may be an opportunity to join the conversation, and we'll let you know if that's necessary to kind of clarify what your questions or that sort of thing. So we'll be monitoring the chat and make sure that your questions get answered. And we do have French translation available today. And if you want to take advantage of that, there's a little globe button down at the bottom. Just click on that and choose which language you would like to listen to the workshop in. We also have live captioning via Otter or Otter AI, or you can also click down below on the interpretation button and choose turn on live interpretation. So if your internet is a bit fickle, Michael R is not, you'll find out. But some of us live in areas where the internet's not so great. And you can also join in by phone, and all that information is in the reminder email you would have gotten this morning. So speaking of Michael R, before we dive into the workshop, I want to ask Michael R. Denny to open the session today and help ground the session with a reflection and song. Michael R. is a renowned powwow MC and arena director, traditional singer, and drum keeper for the Stony Bear Singers. He lives in Eskazoni on Unama'ki, Cape Breton in Nova Scotia, so Mi'kmaq, and is an educator and coordinates coordinator with the Red Road Project, and is a member of the language and culture team there. He works closely with communities across Nova Scotia and Mi'kmaq to bring back their cultural teachings. So we're honored that he is making some time for us today. Michael R. has participated in a number of events that we've done, and we've always felt so much better after he kind of grounds us. So Michael R., I'm turning it over to you to help us ground this session in a good way.
Well, Alan, thank you, Lori, and thank you to Inga as well for inviting me to speak and to open this conference in a good way. We us here in this territory, I call Cape Breton Island Unama'ki. I call it God's country, and coming from this land and coming from the water that's very connected to my people. We really are connected through our language and our culture. Our language is still alive, especially in my community, and many people still speak it. And a lot of our traditional ways, we still honor those old traditional ways. So with that, what I want to do is I'm going to I'm going to sing a song, but before I do that. I want to just say a few words in my language, if that's okay. Gizul kwalali dan del mawali ne giskuk. Wegi walali shimsako dan deli ginemuyak. Kesalolek amui walulnek. Ukchitimsako dan deli ginemuyak. Ukchitimsat da goy geluk lasit kamuninen. Dan des geluk samgan aladuek. Modenuk samgan ma mimajul duek ninen nuk askujinuk. Walali ukchita waises. Awe meg ukchidai wiu sam jipshoy. Muy wal kiga is waises ukchida tantali gnu me ne mi ma wa kana mo edawelt ukchida da kho sakaliga ma nigwek ma kami go ituk tantala we me ninen gas milamu gomush adakho nigwek mi jipshoy dandali we me ukchid bison ukchid dandali we me kisul we wala le ukchid nagamoy ukshitande soldijik dli update update soldijik jujish kisna sisep kalaija soldijik mozikis wala le giso kuchidne mo dantali gnimu am sat go dako dantali gnimu teje glu kisok we wala luk seg nina nul nuk ukchidim sa go dan pasam sa dantali update sa dan pastel ki wali wali abo na muyena na nagamo gisok na edawe alta ishuk dande sul diskussion ni naspol dijik bula edawe ya galukan chajgolti no amugo ayashkina ala kulno wala skujinu naspol dijik iskok wegi wala le gisok muy wal nek gisok muy wal nek gisok muy wal nek gisok kesalo le gisok kesalo le gisok kesalo le gisok agaltinen tande sul die edawe sau gole winen ninen sa galo de winen nandali sul diek agayap chul no we sul dino am stood no gmach I when I get opportunities to speak like this, I always try to thank everything. Um, Sometimes we forget to to acknowledge that we are all connected. We are all connected in many different ways, and even though we live in towns, we live in cities, we live in a bush, we live by the water or on the land, everything that there is all connected, from the little bugs to the birds in the sky to the things that crawl and all the animals, but also more importantly the water. And we thank our creator for the waters. Us here in the East Coast, we're surrounded by salt water, and um, that salt water is that lifeline for especially my people, for since time immemorial. Our highways, we then that's where we got our sustenance. We're a coastal people, so we relied on that water for so much more um, than our food. So I wanted to acknowledge how important the water is for our people, and the rivers and the lakes, and but also you know um, our connection to it as people, as Canadians across this country as well. Our connection to this land, and how powerful that connection is, whether you're a settler, or if your family's been here for 100 years or longer. We are all connected by that. So with that, I'm gonna sing this song. And the song, I like to talk about the song, what it is, eh? um the Mi'kmaq people, we are a society that, and traditionally, had a lot to do with clans, had a lot to do with families. And I'm talking about the interconnectedness, the clans that we have here, versus like the clans that are other Mi'kmaq clans across our territory. And the song that I'm about to sing is a song we call a clan song, and a song that talks about, as a certain verse that you say, we have animal clans. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be singing this song, and I'm going to be talking about this clan, the certain animal clan. And then back in the olden days, when they would get together, they would sing this song. And when the singer would mention your clan, you'd have to go out to where they're dancing to represent your clan, to let the people know that your family is here being represented, your clan is here to being represented. There's many, many, many. The song is indefinite. If all of a sudden everybody shows up and every clan is there, this song could be a very, very long song. But depending on who's here. So back in the good old days, that's what they would do when they would have a mawiomi, is what we call it, a gathering. um and they would sing this song. When Chico was old, yeah, when the la baby, ya no digit na good chaladio. Hey, hey, oh, hey, 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 oh, hey, 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 oh, hey. Kilo wabos old, yo, when the la baby, ya no digit na good chaladio. Hey, hey, oh, hey, 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 oh, hey, hey, oh, hey. Akilo get bold yo, ama wendala bewi, ya no tejit na good jaladio. Hey ya hey ya, way hey ya hey ya, way ya hey. Akilo dia muldio, ama wendala bewi, ya no tejit na good jaladio. Hey ya hey ya, hey ya hey ya, hey ya hey. Agilo jage julio, ama wendala bewi, ya no tejit na good jaladio. Hey ya hey ya, way hey ya way ya hey. Agilo madwe suldio, ama wendala bewi, ya no tejit na good jaladio. Way ya hey ya, way ya hey ya, way ya hey. Agilo gugu suldio, ama wendala bewi, ya no tejit na good jaladio. Hey ya hey ya, hey ya hey ya, hey ya hey. Agilo abig jalutio, ama wendala bewi, ya no tejit na good jaladio. Walaalio, thank you. I just want to talk about that song just really quick because one thing about me is I'll talk and I'll talk and I'll talk and I'll just talk because there's many different things. I share something. The song like this to me is so important. Um, it literally says when ji gabasul tiega mawandala bibi guch ala dio. So it kind of means like those of you because each you're naming a clan each time. So the first verse I sang it different every time. I talk about we call wabos and anybody if there's any people from the Algonquin language that understands that Algonquin wabos is a rabbit. um, Here in this area here, we have two words. Abaligamuch is what we use here mostly, and then wabos. We're starting, people in New Brunswick use wabos more than that, but wabos means literally what the white one. So the only time we're supposed to call a wabos that is in the winter, because when they turn white. So any other time we're supposed to call it Abligamus when it's brown. So that was the first clan I mentioned. The second clan was a Muin, who's a bear. Third, I think was I said Diam or Diamus or a moose. Um, the fourth clan I think I mentioned was Maduas. Maduas is a porcupine. It's a big part of who we are. Not so much in Cape Breton because there's no porcupines here, but mainland Nova Scotia, New Brunswick. At one point we were known as Porcupine Indians because of how much we relied on porcupines for their quill work and for sustenance. But also the last the other one I said was Gugugues, which is an owl. you know we recognize the power of the owl. Some people think an owl is as a negative in our culture. It's a bad thing. I was taught that too, but an owl has the power of the night. Like an eagle, which I also mentioned, Gitpu, the Git Eagle clan. um they the Gitpu is the one who has the energy and the powers of the day, and it's the opposite for the owl. The owl has the powers of the night, so they kind of work in balance together. And I think that was the last clan I did was a funny one. If anybody who spoke Mi'kmaq would understand, we say Abikchulu. Now Abikchulu literally means the one that farts a lot. Okay, it's a skunk. There is no skunk clan in our for the Mi'kmaq people. And it's funny. It's just a funny little thing. And I like to end off. If I sang that song here in my community, people would go crazy laughing because we know we don't have a skunk clan. So, anyways, thank you very much for allowing me to speak and to sing. Muy well, no, I honor you guys, and my thanks is for with you guys for allowing me to do this. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your conference.
Bilal and Michael, thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. It's amazing how connected we are. I'm reminded back when I was working in book publishing, I got to launch the autobiography of Rita Joe, who's from Eskasoni. This is back in 1996, when I was living on the East Coast as well. And it's just kind of amazing how all of those strands seem to kind of cross across this country, back and forth all over across various regions. So it's a pleasure of meeting you, and thank you so much for opening up this morning for us. My morning, your afternoon. So fast forward to 2021, here we are. Michael, our roads just got paved, and he's got fiber internet, which is amazing in a rural part of Nova Scotia. We're going to talk about advanced sort of internet technologies next that require that kind of fiber to really work, and maybe more soon. There's three panelists here today. I'm going to bring them up one by one. Tammy Lee from Culture Creates is joining us to talk about the implications of the changes on the internet itself, and what that means for, let's say, the presenter's web presence. It's a fairly relentless evolution at this point, so it'll be good to get a bit of a catch up on that. Art Proctor is joining us from Art Proctor is joining us from Calgary. I believe that's where you are, Art. And I've met Art a couple of years ago in Banff, and have been trying ever since to understand what he really does. So we're going to hear from him about sort of some really futuristic type pieces, NFTs and other things, blockchain based stuff, and whatever else you've got on your mind. And then the third panelist is Lee Erdmann, who was recommended by Mandy. I think Mandy just showed up a little while ago here in the meeting. Mandy Rushton recommended I should get in touch with her to see if she wanted to join this panel conversation today. So I did, and here Lee does a lot of work in VR and many other things. So again, it's leading tech. It's maybe things that have been around for a while, but are not mainstream at all, for a bunch of reasons. So we'll talk about all of that together. Where I'd like to start off with you is to ask you this really simple question, just to ground us in the here and now a little bit. And you saw this question in advance, so we'll see what you came up with as an answer. In your digital experience, what comes to your mind when I say the most significant innovation of the last 20 years in the digital space that directly impacts my work is what?
I'm going to start. Artificial intelligence directly impacts my work.
And we'll hear about that in a moment a little bit more, won't we? All right, what about you?
I'm going to say I have a quick little sentence. Adobe Suite, smartphones, live streaming, game engines, immersive media, and blockchain.
There was a lot of hyphens in that single sentence. So you kind of ran quite a gamut there from Adobe Suites all the way to blockchain. So you almost covered about 20 years, didn't you? Yes. Lee, what about from where you're sitting?
I'm similar to Art. I couldn't pick one, but basically all immersive technology, specifically prosumer 360-degree cameras, tied with free social VR platforms and consumer Oculus gear. Putting the tools into the hands of creators has just changed everything in my world radically.
So can we just take a second here? Maybe Art or Lee, can you give us a definition of immersive? I find that word has been misused a lot. So what do you mean by immersive?
For me, I agree with you 100% because immersive is an extremely broad word. Coupled with immersive media, I like to use it in conjunction with that because that implies that you are in a form of communication or expression fully. And I'm really into embodiment and somatic resonance with technology and media tech as the extension of a body. And for me, there are levels of immersion. And I mean, you can go from the most basic, sitting around the campfire, singing a song with Michael is super immersive, right? But then going up the ladder of technology, media, now we're at the point where you can bring all of your senses and all of your consciousness into a artificial environment world. So then that's where we're at right now.
That was a lot of, really important words. So one of the things I'm aware of, and I want to acknowledge this right from the start, some of the stuff that people will say today, you may have no idea what they mean by that. If that is so, write something in the chat and say, come again. What is that? We can find English words to try to describe all of this. It's not always easily possible, but let's make sure that we're not losing anybody in this conversation today. I'm aware that there's going to be some vocabulary that we're not all used to, and that's just we need to learn vocabulary. If you're thinking about I'm wondering whether you have a view on this. This is kind of a quirky, weird question that I had. Is when you're thinking about your work and your experiences over the last number of years and the various dimensions of work that you do, are there some observations you might have for performing arts presenters about the kinds of tools, digital tools that are readily available that they might not be using or using to best effect? It's a generalization I'm looking for. I'm just wondering if anything comes to mind there for any of you.
They're not using their website properly. How about that? Let's start with the basics. We can use the internet better. We actually have an opportunity to actually come together and use the internet way, way better to prepare for the onslaught of the oncoming artificial intelligence algorithm bot. That's here. It's here today.
So is that, Tammy, is that part of this idea that, you know, we're still building websites as a destination? And that
Yes, we're
perhaps
still,
they're not a
yes.
destination anymore, but there are some other things we need to
There's
know?
absolutely. So, you know, we just need to have a basic, and I'll talk about this later. We need to have a
Mhm.
basic understanding of how the internet works. And even with just the elementary basic understanding, it will prepare us on how to view that tool that's super important to us all,
Okay.
to, you know, to reach the public.
Cool. Art, what about you? Any hints or notions about, you know, what we might do better as arts presenters?
Well, I would say that according to that the question that you asked me in regards to audience development and you know technology that artists made should use or haven't used is I'm going to go very basic. The corporate audience development use Meetup, Eventbrite, Twitch, Discord, Vimeo, some of those tools that can actually create communities, because it's all about community to me. So those are some very corporate kind of like tools or apps that on the ground people can actually use. Art specific AD educational presentational tools. There's one called Digital Theater. It's been around since 2009, and it's a world-leading educational platform for the study of performing arts and dramatic text. That's a really cool service and site. A more recent one, indie one called Live Music Camera, which started and was shelved in 2016, but relaunched in 2020 because of the pandemic, is a kind of like a goal of this is first produce and create an online music venue to help musicians globally live stream their musical talent and online achieve international fame, success, and recognition. That one is actually a pretty interesting business case. And then quickly, I'll give you just a couple of non-corporate data sovereign ones, as I would call it. MeWe, which democratizes social media. Telegram, which is a really cool kind of a peer-to-peer data sovereign kind of like app that you can create communities and groups with it. A company that I consult with is Public Place Network, and I know you've had Doug on here before, which is a streaming platform or OTT system. Another one, which is really cool, Side Door, which I'm sure you guys talked about before. And then a new and up and coming one called Tape Reel, which is in beta right now.
All right. So Art, you may not have this prepared, but if some of those, if you would be able to throw some of those links to websites, you know, into the chat as we go through the session today, that would be super helpful. You gave us quite a survey there. Lee, anything to add?
I'm learning so much. This is amazing. I wish I could take notes. When I read your question, I sort of reflected more on audience building, and for me, I just think that there should be a little bit more mobile interaction that can serve kind of like as a side project for the actual project. I'm just thinking of developing audiences for presentations, but maybe that's not in the wheelhouse of a presenter. Like, for example, I just did a hackathon for the Renaissance Opera in Vancouver a couple weekends ago, and we came up with an app that was a really fun game for teenagers to use to be the producer of their own opera, and it was fun and it looked cool, and it's sort of like an audience building, an audience expansion tool. to enlarge certain types of audiences that you may not be able to reach, even if you are on all of those platforms. And in my point of view, I get really confused with all my weird ticket sites. I have a million of them, and which one is that ticket on and this ticket on, and it gets a little confusing. So maybe there's room for some streamlining there. Otherwise, I think it's important to realize that in terms of technology and delivery systems for a performance, that the hybrid approach is still very feasible. And you can do location-based installations and still incorporate your amazing digital tools. And I think for a lot of this stuff, audience reticence is sort of still there. Everybody's kind of terrified, or a lot of people, the majority are really unsure, and they can feel safer if they're going to a space where it's controlled and there are people helping them that are technologically, taking care of everything, and they're not as confronted by the onboarding onto a digital performance, which can be very confronting. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Just at the beginning of this, you said you're not sure if that's in the wheelhouse of a presenter. At this point, we're in a building, rebuilding, reinvention phase. So who knows what's in the wheelhouse of a presenter moving forward, right?
Right.
I'm kind of excited about, there's been a lot of presenters that have pivoted because travel hasn't been possible and touring hasn't been possible. There's much more local artist support happening in a whole bunch of places across the country that didn't really happen before, because touring and presenting has been the main gig, right? So who knows where that'll end up. But I do know that, presenters are a playback platform. Like the theater stage is a playback for a written play, right? So, and I think part of what you might be talking to us a little bit about is, so what is the playback platform for virtual reality? At what point, is that really just a personal experience I have in my house? Or are there some other opportunities, right? Because I think that'll be an interesting conversation. And I think that's very much in flux as well, right? Like we don't know all those answers quite yet. Briefly, before I kind of make the space for Tammy to give us a bit of a, each of you will have a sort of a moment of presentation coming up, but I just was wondering about, did you have any response in addition to what we've just talked about in terms of, are there some other digital technology trends that you see coming down the pipe that you think we really need to pay attention to in the performing arts? Or is what you've already shared, reflective of that?
I think another, oops, sorry, go ahead, Art.
Oh, sorry. No, please, Tammy, go ahead.
Another thing we have to start thinking about is, because everyone's talking about it, is data. Data is new oil. I hate that term. I hate that term so much, and people get confused and people start talking about governance. So we need to know, what is our data, metadata is used for? What is the purpose? So just, if you're promoting yourself and you have descriptive metadata on your website, the likelihood is that the more it gets reused and picked up and seen and read and reused, the better. So, ideas of governance and ownership around, metadata that's on the internet, what does that really mean? And I think we got to really parse down to little bits. What do we mean by data when we say that? And what's the purpose? What is the purpose? That's my 2 cents.
Art.
If you're asking the question, what are 2 or 3 tech trends that you see coming down the pipe? I did a little research and wrote up a quick little thing. For me, virtual production, LED screens, projection mapping, spatial audio, game engines. And a good example of that is by a company called Lighthouse Immersive Theater. They're the people that actually do the Van Gogh exhibit, Touch, which is in Toronto right now, and a couple of other immersive 360 kind of presentations. If you have gone to Van Gogh, it's fantastic. It's one big room, projection mapping, animation of Van Gogh pictures and mixed with text and music. It's quite fantastic. I strongly suggest that you go see it if you can. Touch is another one. The little write-up says, touch fusing powerful projections with superb live dance. Touch is a highly interactive performance, forging a dialogue between audience, performers, and multimedia within a 360 projection space. Really cool. There's a company based out of New York called Resounding Live. And they do, it's a spatial 3D audio thing. Resounding is the future of live entertainment. Our amazing new technology places you in the middle of a live, fully immersive 3D soundscape. It's a podcast, meets radio play, meets Broadway. Put on your headphones and be transported into new worlds.
Okay, Lee, I just saw you nodding there. Are you?
Oh yeah, I was just thinking about the play that I'm doing, because they're kind of captioning themselves as reinventing Broadway, which is kind of exactly what's happening right now. And there are these groups on Discord that are coming together, theater practitioners that are joining up with developers and world builders and like putting on musicals, and it's really captivating. But and also a nod to Tammy when she said the data thing, because that's a real concern, because we're wearing headsets that are tracking our bodies and our breathing and our eye movement, and it's all going to Mark Zuckerberg. And what's he going to do with it? Now he owns Oculus. There are a lot of concerns that needs to be really dealt with. I mean, right now we're just, well, let's go, and we don't know what's going to happen, but we really should sort of be able to have a choice on that. So I'm really interested to hear what you're going to talk about. But if you're talking about performers, I would say in terms of trends for performers, I would say start working with mocap and digital theater, because gaming is the new film, and immersive technology is going to bring more and more demand for actual professional movers, dancers, singers who know what they're doing, who know how to deal with a spatial situation like 360 space and can jump in and get it. Because that's what trained theater people can do. Also directors, also scenographers, digital scenographers, stagecraft going digital, all of that stuff. I don't know if you guys know, but before the pandemic, the location-based virtual reality world was blowing up, and Cineplex Odeon had like plans to put 16 huge buildings across Canada that were going to be, you come in and you have a real event, like there's a bar and a restaurant and a dance floor and different rooms that you can experience VR, and it all got shut down. But I know it's coming back, and they're making plans again, and you can see the shuffle in the corporate world of who's going to own what. So there's going to be a huge demand for content, and that's going to need artists and creators. But if you're talking about theater companies, I don't really know that the digital space, it's not going to replace live theater. It's not. Live events will never, ever be replaced. But I think the effects of this post-pandemic world is that I think it's going to be a demand by the audience that there needs to be some kind of interaction digitally with what they're seeing, whether it's before or after or during or on the side or totally within. And for me, I just think like if you're a presenter or a producer, that the easiest way in for you would be to do something with AR, with augmented reality, because that's a mobile interface. Everybody has a phone. It's really cheap to make. And it's just a cute little, like, it's not really long lasting. Like, it doesn't have like huge impact on, artistically from what I've seen. But it's very interactive and it's fun. And it allows people to take away a little souvenir also from the event. So it's kind of like really good for that type of thing.
Cool. Just a quick reference to the chat. When you said mocap, my brain kind of went like, what does she mean by that?
Oh,
it's
sorry.
motion capture, of course, and there was a bunch of explaining that a couple of people did in the chat on that. And I think that's part of the challenge of, when we're so immersed, so to speak, in our field, we forget.
Yes. So mocap is short for
not...
motion capture. Yes.
Absolutely. We all got that.
Motion capture. So every time you see a movie or something, a production or anything that's animated, like a game that looks so realistic, it's because they took these actors into a great big green box and got them all wired up with electronics and translated that into a skin of a animated character.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool stuff. Art, did you want to say something
Yes,
else?
to give a real life example of mocap in a public space, if you watch the TV show Alter Ego, which is a talent show where they actually have singers that put on motion capture suits, adopt a character and perform, and judges, you know, they jury the performance and push the candidates through.
Awesome. All right, so Tammy, I'm going to give the floor to you for the next few minutes. I'm going to share your slides that you sent me. As that happens, everybody's going to end up in full screen mode if you weren't before. You can change that. You're empowered at the top of your Zoom window. You can go back to gallery view if you want. Anyways, take it from here.
Okay.
Where's the internet at?
Oh, I'm good. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So before I start, I would like to take the opportunity to acknowledge that I'm speaking to you from the unceded Indigenous territory of the Kanien'kehá:ka Nation. They are the recognized custodians of the lands and the waters on which I'm standing on here today, which is Tiohtià:ke, Montreal. It's a privilege for me to pay my humble respects to elders past and present of the Kanien'kehá:ka Nation, and to extend that respect to all Indigenous peoples from coast to coast to coast. So my name is Tammy. I'm a settler Canadian and a co-founder of a semantic technology company called Culture Creates. Next, please. So I've been tasked to talk about the rise of bots on the internet and the implication it has on web present. And I think when I talk about that, I think there's, when we talk about it, it's twofold. One, bots have fundamentally changed how the internet works. And two, because of that, they fundamentally changed and continue to change human behavior. And the internet, without a doubt, I think is one of the most important tools an arts organization has to reach people. And I think it's a benefit to have at least a basic understanding of how the internet functions to better comprehend the potential impact of bots and what the future internet could look like. So I'm going to use an analogy to quickly explain how the internet works. And I hope you will be able to see the impact that bots have. Next. So imagine a library with billions and trillions of books, where there is no order, and as a book comes in, it takes whatever random spot is available on a shelf. So this is like all the stuff on the internet. It's exactly how stuff enters the internet, willy-nilly in a random way. And if you had to look for one book in a random stack of billions and trillions of books, how would that even be possible? Next. You would have to depend on a really good librarian, in fact, a super librarian, to search for you. And to be any good, that super librarian over time with every search would have to remember and keep track of where each and every book you request is located in a library of billions and trillions of books. So the super librarian is searching, not you. Next. And super librarians do need some help. So publishers are asked to print helpful information, like a title on a spine of a book, to make it easier for a librarian to see and find books in a massive library of disordered books. So if we compare a website to a book, this helpful information printed on the spine or on the front or back cover is metadata, a basic element of online discoverability. By the way, there's a great guide called Mastering Discoverability for the Performing Arts on the Digital Arts Nation website. I highly suggest that everyone check it out. Next. So back to the analogy. Whoops, next slide, thank you. Without that helpful information, like a title printed on a spine, a librarian may not see a book, or without metadata, not see a website. So super librarians search for the books we want. So if they can't see it, they won't find it, meaning we don't get to see the book either. So basic understanding. Next. But super librarians have changed. They now read books between the covers. So not only do they search for books and point to their location or fetch them for us, they now supply answers to questions. And the more they read, the more information they know, the more questions they're capable of answering. Next. You know, the system they use to help them make sense of all the information available in a library of billions and trillions of books is called a knowledge graph. It's just for your information. A knowledge graph and a super librarian are closely linked, so much so that we often confuse them as one and the same thing, but they're not. A super librarian uses a knowledge graph to be capable of supplying answers to questions. So think of a super librarian as a recommender, search engine, Siri, OK Google, Alexa, a bot, or whatever that uses a knowledge graph to give you an answer to a question. And these answers are fundamentally changing human behavior. People like the convenience of a quick answer. They don't need to read the book. And when I say book here, I mean website. People don't need to visit a website. Next. So what do we have? We have a messy library with billions and trillions of books, the internet. To find anything, we use super librarians, bots, algorithms, machines to search for us. To make search easier for these machines, publishers are asked to print helpful information on a book's cover. That's metadata. For librarians need a really good way to access and work with information because their whole purpose is to provide answers to questions. You know, so the internet today is shifting from search engine optimization, SEO. Your marketing directors deal with SEO every single day. So it's shifting from SEO to answer engine optimization, AEO. And the difference is, in the world of SEO, search engine optimization, a bot is going to look on the web to search for what you asked for and then give you a bunch of links that you can then choose to click on. Versus in the world of AEO, answer engine optimization, a bot will serve you up an answer to a question. One answer to a question. In other words, a bot is able to consolidate information, data from different sources, derive an answer for a question, and then serve it up on the fly to whatever device or platform being used. You know, in the not so distant future, that means my teenage son as an adult will most likely not be clicking links to visit a website. He will expect an immediate answer on the fly on whatever device he will be using. And I bet money that device will not be anything like a laptop computer. So that's my 2 cents.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Tammy. The qualitative, leap that happens when search engines no longer just give you a whole bunch of searches.
That's right.
Search results, but to actually give you that one answer and to figure out how we can be the authoritative answer or one of the first answers, kind of the trick. And I think this is particularly important when we think about performing arts events. We know that the movie business was one of the first ones to embrace those ideas. And when you type in theater, you got to find a Cineplex.
Yeah,
right. It's still a challenge.
Absolutely. And when you're served up one answer, what does that mean for discoverability? Right. So these are the things that you have to start thinking about. We're all the entire performing arts world and the Canada Council Digital Strategy Fund, and here in Quebec with my Ministère de Culture and Communication, everybody is so focused on discoverability. Discoverability, we need to be discoverable. What happens when a bot serves up one answer? So so this is sort of what's happening on the internet. So, where are you discoverable? Then I'm thinking about what Art and Lee have been talking about. Well, my kid's not going to have a laptop computer. He's not going to be using a laptop computer when he's an adult. So where is he going to be? What platform is he going to be in. So does discoverability happen on Roblox? You know, is there advertising on Roblox, on Twitch, on, you know, what environment, digital environment are kids today going to be in the future? And it's not clicking links on websites.
Yeah. I'm keenly aware that part of what internet, when we're now talking about the Internet of Things, right?
Yes.
So the idea that your fridge can make your grocery list somehow,
Yes.
or that your,
Scary,
I don't know, your
yes.
fuel tank goes low and it'll order, you know, the gas delivery or something like that. Those are all applications that are being, some of those exist, some of those are in development. It's a very strange world, right, where we somehow end up between Minority Report, The Matrix,
Yes.
and maybe, I don't know, the Star Trek holodeck or something like that.
Yes.
And I'm not sure which direction it's going to go quite yet, right?
No, but I think bots have, you know, so understanding how the internet works, basically, I think it's just really important for the performing arts sector. You know, I'm not, yeah, the live performance is not going to disappear, and I'm all for the live performance. I also forced my kid to get off his device and sit 2 hours to go watch a ballet, as you know, silently without any devices attached to him. But we need to use the internet better. We need to, and everybody, and you know, we're talking about the performing arts sector, but all sectors are having this difficulty and this transition problem. And I think at the core of digital transformation is dealing with our metadata openly on the internet, and how do we structure that? How do we create that for a sector? So it's not just the performing arts struggling with this. So don't feel bad. Other sectors have the same problem as well.
Yes, indeed. And that's part of the sort of that rapid evolution of the internet, right? Where the only question is how quickly can we catch up and use it for good for our purposes.
Absolutely. And in regards to that catch up, there's one little caveat that I have. We have the advance of artificial intelligence, which I don't have tons of time to talk about. But because in the early days of AI, we have a very small window to actually leapfrog and use the technology of today to land in the 21st century. And if we miss that window, I think it'll be impossible to catch up, actually. So the window is closing.
So you just gave us a timeline here for action.
Yes.
I'm gonna thank you so much, Tammy. I'm gonna throw it to Lee. So you've been doing a pilot work in VR, immersive media technologies. I've noticed that as a consumer, I've had virtually no opportunity to actually consume any of that. So I'm very interested, to sort of understand a little bit more about, and I mean, XR is the other term we use, extended reality, which is sort of an encompassing term. Talk to us a little bit more about, how performing artists are using VR in theater and dance. That is part of, the work you're doing. And perhaps what are some of the challenges in terms of access to market, access to audiences that your field is dealing with? I'll leave it to you from here.
Sure. Thank you, Inga. Yeah, and everything that Tammy said is just right on the mark. So first, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Lee Erdman, and I'm a theater and film performer and creator working in 360 video and virtual reality. I was born in Southern Alberta, but I currently live in Toronto, which I acknowledge is traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. I also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. So my most recent foray is I'm currently in the cast of a virtual reality live interactive play. It's a lot of descriptive words, called Welcome to Respite. It's created by a group down in Los Angeles that emerged out of in real life, which we say IRL, interactive theater. So they found that virtual reality was a great solution for the COVID restrictions to put up their play. So they joined together with another group called Ferryman Collective, which kind of formed from a group of actors and developers who had been working for many years in the virtual reality space under some festival stuff for Third Eye Productions, Pandora X, a bunch of other things that were touring around festivals. And all of these virtual reality things, they toured around the festivals and then nobody knew what to do with them, right? So they kind of like fizzle out, and then they get money and do another one. And but these creators are really working hard to really reinvent this form of theater, this form of media, and they're very, very devoted. So I get to play in their production. So we're in Rain Dance Festival right now, and we're still selling tickets. So if you guys want to come see it, come and look us up on the Rain Dance Festival. And thank you so much for inviting me for this panel. I hope I can share some knowledge with you from the point of view of a performer and producer actively working in this medium. So let me see, Inga, first you asked me to talk about where I see VR, XR today and how are performing artists using VR in theater and dance, for instance. And so immersive media and VR theater has had a bumpy ride. It's been around for a long time, since the 70s, really. But it was picked up really quickly in like 2013, 14, 15, and then kind of dropped, and then now it's blown up again. So the uptick we're seeing now, as evidenced by film festivals fully embracing immersive media, along with international symposiums focused on tech and entertainment, is caused by that pandemic, number one. There's a desire for connection and community and collaboration, and a desire for accessible entertainment. Number two, accessible tools for artists and creators to use, both in performance and scenography, have emerged in the digital space. Number three, a huge population of highly skilled developers and 3D world builders. And so when I say these words, I mean the guys who make the games. They make the immersive games. They're all the back-end developers, like the room of 50 guys at the computers that are building environments and visuals and 3D things. They're all there and they want to have fun with us. So they're everywhere. They're easy to get to work with. And also the innovation that happened in the cinematic film industry recently, Lion King, Mandalorian, Star Trek, are all using virtual sets. And by that, I mean a couple of different things. It could be an enormous LCD screen, almost like a bubble that they're working in with the actors and filming that environment onto digital medium. And that's a whole crazy process. It's happening a lot here in Toronto. I think there's a big set, Avatar, shooting in Vancouver that way right now. And also they have black box film sets for animation, where they just wire you up and they wire the camera up and they wire it all up to computers and VFX people, and the director literally goes into the headset to see the world and direct the set. It's a bit of a mind-blowing situation. These things are happening because of the innovation that's reducing costs for film production. What is lagging, in my point of view, and what I did my master's on back in 2017, was where's the creative? There's all this money, there's all these startups, there's all this digital innovation, there's all these, can I say, dudes in the back room tapping away, making video games. And where can I fit in as a theater maker, as a creative artist, as a dancer? I know I can do stuff with this medium. So the realization that immersive media needs more performers and theater professionals involved that know story, spatial composition, not just filling the frame, but spatial composition, movement, professional movers, and professional voice actors. And there is not a VR Performance University course yet, although I think there's murmurs around Caltech. But really, in my experience, the technology must facilitate the story. And if it doesn't, it's a brr, 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 like it's like a no. So here's a quote from Avinash Changa, who created Angels of Amsterdam immersive experience that's getting really great reviews, that takes you back into time on the streets of Amsterdam and to show you the lives of the women who lived there at the time. And she made a really good quote here. She said, "We'll get to a point where we can basically recreate real life visually. And when technology is no longer a factor, it really comes back to the creator and the creative vision. And then we can really start to talk about imagination and come up with things that we have never, ever seen with our own eyes." I would suggest to the court that that's happening a little bit right now. But because, as you pointed out, Inga, and I have to remind myself that I'm like in this tiny little bubble of like art nerds that are doing this stuff, that you're right, it's hard to access. But we have to remember that the tech is a tool, and the good news is that the more that they build, the easier it is to use, the cheaper it is to get your hands on, the more we can engage our audience, the more that we can do as indie creators or smaller companies. And experimentation is going on all the time, like 24/7 globally with this medium. People just scrapping it out, like all over the world, just working for free, making stuff, from fully animated motion tracking to live theater in VR platforms. And I have a few videos I wouldn't mind sharing with you just to illustrate this, because it's really hard to talk about it. It's with words. So let me see if I can get some stuff up. So briefly, here is, oh, let me share my screen. Okay, let me see here. Sorry, guys. Share screen. This one. Share. Okay. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes, we are.
Okay, good. So this is the trailer for, I'm just going to mute it, for the show that I'm doing. And I'm just going to talk you through it. So you come in and you're wearing a headset, and this first shot is the point of view of you, and you are playing as an actor with the other two actors, mom and dad, and that's me, mom, and that's my husband, dad. So this is kind of how you would experience it. This is like a outside shot of an experience from another audience member. We make the other audience members invisible, so they're passive-ish, they can interact a little bit. But you're fully immersed in this artificial world, and it's changing, and the story is going along, and you are in it, and you can even embody me or one of the other characters. This is the intro where we play little toys, and you're shrunken down to the size of a toy, where we walk you into the experience. And this story works really well in VR because it's about time travel. It's about a child going back into their childhood memories, and one of the audience members gets to play the child. So it really works on a parallel narrative that the child doesn't remember anything, but neither do you, because you've never experienced this before. So the script is really done. So this is sort of a really yeah, so that's just the trailer there. So I wanted to show you what the heck I was talking about. Another thing I want to show you here is just what's going on with some of the opera companies. And this is the Renaissance Opera Company. This is their result of their hackathon last year. And you can see, what you're going to see is mocap. You're going to see motion capture wired onto a dancer in real time. She's going to be I want to say reacting, but collaborating with the digital character that's actually going to be on the screen here. And so you can kind of see how this is working. And then that's what the audience will see. And she is controlling that animated character. So when you go into your VR world and you encounter this creature, she's actually being played by a live actor, which is really cool stuff. It really adds a lot more embodiment. How am I doing for time, Inga?
You're at 10 minutes.
Okay, I want to show one last thing.
Show us one last thing. That's great.
Okay, this is a company out of I think it's the UK, and they've been working in this space for a long time. They're called WIST. And this is a good example of how you could present a virtual reality piece. Because the fun thing about virtual reality is being in it, but then it's also really fun watching people be in virtual reality. And that's like a huge attraction. When we used to do our mall tours for like Belle and the Raptors, and we had the virtual reality, people would gather around and be like, what's going on? So these presenters have realized that. And so what they've done is location-based experiences that actually watching the people in virtual reality is kind of like another level of the performance experience. So here's Whist. So this is, yeah. So this is what she's seeing inside of her world. And she's in, and this is the actual space that they're walking through. And what this company did is they created like an environment, a physical environment that matched the digital environment. So you could walk around it and explore things. So the shapes are representing like, you know, big boulders and rocks that you're looking around, or however the digital environment is. And this is another really cool thing that they did with Dinner Party. And you really get to be in the piece. And that is sort of the embodiment aspect that I'm really keen on with this new technology, because as a dancer, embodiment's everything. And I came to this with a desire to find solutions other than a film of a proscenium and a bunch of people on it on the stage. So that's pretty much what I'm all into. I don't think
awesome.
I don't think I was able to really talk about all the questions that you asked, but
no, this is perfect. You know, I mean, I'm keenly aware that we're going to be scratching the surface. Hopefully, we're going to give the surface a good scratch today, right? Because I mean, part of that is trying to figure out, you know, what is relevant in each of our different contexts. You know, there's a lot of adjacent work that a live stage actor can get today that comes from the gaming industry, that comes from VR, that comes from AR. Right, like there's a lot of work out there. How to get that, how to break into it is sometimes the question. And also, you know, and I think we're all acknowledge, and I think I'm be the first one to acknowledge that live performance is gonna stay a thing.
Yes.
What's gonna change is the stuff around live performance, right?
Yes.
And technology layers and audience choices relative to that will change.
And
so
that's where, yeah, and that's where a lot of what Tammy, sorry to interrupt, but I just, when Tammy was speaking, I was just thinking about like all the design ethics that are going on right now and all the considerations for human-centric design and inclusive and diverse design that needs to be baked into the creation of all of this stuff, so that we can feel safe and feel like technology is our tool, not we are its tool.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a tricky time for that, for sure. I want to, if we do be able to put some of those links to those videos you shared into the chat, and perhaps if you want to, you know, promo your performance that's still available, throw that into the chat as well, and people can check that out if they want to. I'm going to throw it to Art from here. We've had interesting conversations about streaming and things over the last couple of years. You're a bit of a futurist. You like to look ahead. So I want to take advantage of you looking ahead for us. The specific arena that we had talked about, you sort of primarily focusing on, is stuff around blockchain and NFTs. You know, backbone technology. So again, blockchain is, you know, none of us need to know what it is. At the end of the day, we're going to use tools that ride on top of that technology, just like the internet. We don't really know what the internet is. We just build websites on it, right? That would be one facile way to try to express that. Can I hand it over to you? I shared a few questions. You want to take it from here and see where your brain took it?
Okay, thank you, Inga. I appreciate the invitation, and I echo all the comments and resources that Tammy and Lee gave. I'm sure we can talk for hours about these things, which interest me because I'm a geek. But I will go towards my summation of questions that you asked me, and hopefully explains and answers some of those questions. So, Kui, Oki, bonjour from Mohkinstsis Treaty 7 Blackfoot Territory and Métis Region 3, aka Calgary, Alberta. My name is Art Proctor. I'm an Afro-Métis neurodiverse artist, activist, technologist, and community builder. I've been told that I'm an outspoken cultural catalyst and social political unwilling prophet. My focus and passion are exploring the intersection between art and technology, specifically film, digital, and immersive media through the lenses of the unrepresented diverse voices of Black, Indigenous, and people of color. I'm currently a digital transformation analyst, tech research enthusiast with a focus on virtual production, immersive media integration technology into traditional legacy theater, music, and film. The first question that you asked me was, what can you tell me about crypto art, or how are you as a crypto artist? So I'll give you a definition and maybe an example. Crypto art to me refers to in real life or digital cryptocurrency related artwork and or physical artwork tokenized in a blockchain platform. They're back in about 2018, there was a Calgary-based company called Upstart.io. Now, Upstart.io was one of the very first companies to have an online art market built and backed by blockchain, utilizing blockchain technology and smart contracts to reconcile physical assets into the digital space. If you, just a little point of trivia, I, as you see me speaking, am one of the very first artists to actually have one of their paintings bought, sold, and uploaded with a digital certificate of authenticity into the Ethereum blockchain, and it was called Banking on Bitcoin. Actually, 2 years before Beeple actually sold his painting for like $65 million at Christie's. So where's my money? So I'm going to give you a brief explainer on blockchain technology. Full disclosure, I'm not a subject matter expert, just a tech-savvy artist, geek, nerd, with real-world experience enough to be intellectually dangerous on the topic. Blockchain is a decentralized immutable ledger, a fancy way of saying data sovereign, cloud-based, 99% unhackable Excel spreadsheet of transactions distributed over a global, multiple dynamic, unchangeable, secured network server. Example, your phone is the encasement of a blockchain. The OS is the internal architecture functioning of the system. The individual apps, or dApps, are the software that is used to create different functionality. The most known and famous example of blockchain application is cryptocurrency, and the most known crypto is Bitcoin. Number two top application through blockchain is what's called a smart contract. Smart contracts are simply programs stored on a blockchain that run when predetermined conditions are met. They are typically used to automate the execution of an agreement so that all participants can be immediately certain of the outcome without any intermediary involvement or time loss. Okay, moving on to
Art,
the
can I
fancy
just,
buzzword.
Art, let me
And-
ask you a quick question on smart
Okay.
contracts.
Yep.
Is one of the application of those smart contracts related to digital rights management?
Yes, that's exactly the reason why they were created. Going back to the example of Upstart.io, the question that they wanted to answer is how, because in, I believe, 194 jurisdictions, there's artist rights management. And surprisingly, Canada is one of the very few people in the world, but they didn't have that, and they wanted to figure out a way to reconcile the concept of intellectual property, arts rights management, and security of artists' workable or unchangeable secured system. Specifically to use provenance in the contract.
Recording in progress.
Actually have that is installed into the ledger forever, and it's pretty much almost impossible to change. So you can actually track when something was bought, who bought it, when it was bought, who was sold to, all this kind of stuff. They're using it not just in art these days, they're also using it right now with wine, surprisingly, because there's a huge counterfeit of wine. They're using it for medicine, they're using it for cattle, they're using it in oil and gas. So it's a broad range of applications that can be used. Does that answer your question? Okay. I will go on to the second question that Inga asked me. Can you explain what an NFT is? An NFT, or non-fungible token, is basically a kind of a digital trading card. It's a microcomputer program that creates a unique digital asset that represents ownership of real-world items like physical and digital art, video clips, music, real estate, and more, using the same blockchain technology that powers cryptocurrency, but they're not currency. Specifically, uses what's called a smart contract to reconcile the payment and tracking of the provenance that is installed into blockchain ledgers. Next question that she asked was, how can you buy an NFT? You can buy NFTs on what's called an NFT market. Most markets require you to have a digital wallet like a MetaMask with an amount of cryptocurrency standard deposited that you can use to purchase that. It's just your bank account, your digital blockchain cryptocurrency bank account. So you actually have to have a wallet, as they call them, and there's multiple wallets of different styles and way. The most common kind of like one is called MetaMask. It's currently tied into Brave. So if you download Brave browser, which is one of the most blockchain friendly browsers, you can actually install and create a wallet in that platform, and you can upload your cryptocurrency in there, and then you could actually buy things using cryptocurrency through that plugin. The most known NFT market, or most popular, I should say, is a place called OpenSea, but there are several others like Axie Market, Lava Labs, with multiple other launching weekly. My favorite currently are an old school one called CryptoKitties, which was launched and started surprisingly in Calgary, but then moved to Vancouver, and now they have offices around the world. Secondly, there's two ones that have launched recently. One actually has a Canadian connection. It's called One-Of. It's a music platform, a cryptocurrency blockchain music platform, and one is called Galaxy. I'll give you a quick explanation of that. So you asked me, what have you seen in terms of how people have been experimenting with this in arts and culture arena? So One-Of is a revolutionary eco-conscious NFT platform built specifically for music vertical, which is, and one of their big stakeholders is Quincy Jones. And they also have partnered with the Grammys and all kinds of other really cool artists, music artists, and all that kind of stuff. With an aim to break down economic barriers to entry, the platform serves to authentically connect fans and collectors of any level with their favorite artists. Now, here's a really unique one. Again, another Canadian connection. Viewall, representing the first ever direct-to-consumer view platform utilizing NFT technology. Viewall will provide a stage for an international film distribution, streaming of feature-length films and digital film memorabilia. Viewall uses blockchain technology and NFTs, will allow it not only to reach its audience with its feature film, but also provide additional value-added content in form of NFT offerings, but not limited to behind-the-scenes content, bonus features, exclusives, memorabilia, yada, yada, yada. Galaxy is an open marketplace designed and built by creators for creators and audience engagement. And they have a wide array of art, music, and all kinds of other really super cool things. The last question that you asked, I believe, what can you imagine our presenters do with the experiment of NFTs and how risky the experiments are? NFT crowdfunding and opening triggered hidden content like Mila Kunis, who is the wife of Ashton Kutcher. She actually put in a NFT crowdfunding campaign to raise money for her animated series Stoner Cats, and raised $8 million through that concept, which is pretty amazing. This one's a little bit more close to home because I'm actually in consultation of that as we speak. It's an interactive hybrid ebook that uses NFTs to unlock chapters and experiences. So using a full, we could say the next fancy buzzword, metaverse, which is just literally the future of the internet, which connects social media, AR, VR, all the R's all rolled under one umbrella. The risk, for me, if you use a reputable creator producer using reputable platform, it has no more or less risk than traditional model. It's just the same thing, just transposed into a digital space. So if you actually have the business acumen and the due diligence in the real world, apply the same thing in the digital space. Okay, in the last few years, what are readily amendable? Okay, we already talked about that.
Yep.
And where was it? Okay. You're okay. Okay, your take. Okay, I think this is for later on, so I'll leave that.
Yeah, no, we're getting close to the end of our time, actually.
Yep.
This was quite the tour de force. So one of the things that we'll do in terms of the reporting back on the session is I'll go back and Laurie has been putting a few of the links in to places you've mentioned. We'll actually go back and we'll re-listen with the aim of actually aggregating all of that. So
I will send you.
Yes, please.
I will send you a list. I apologize that I didn't be able to collate that at the time. I'm working on 3 projects at the same time,
Absolutely.
and I don't know my name half the
Yeah,
time.
no, that's cool. One of the triage points for me really is about, so can I ignore any of this safely? Right, that's my closing question to all of you. From the standpoint of, think about an arts organization and its 5-year strategic planning cycle, right? Like we can't look, so far out sometimes. But in terms of is there any of this that are all of these kind of imminent, important, we should figure it out a little bit of how it means to us? Or is some of that stuff that I can put on a shelf and actually not use my brain to think about for a while?
So I would say the things that we should look at or adopt today regarding of where you are in the space is streaming. Streaming, number one, OTT presentation platforms. Get some education, or maybe start to look at virtual productions, podcasts, multi-platform storytelling, adopted into your presentations and marketing. And I know this is a big fancy word, but building a metaverse strategy moving forward, because it's not going away. You need to actually think about this now. Before, we actually had a digital strategy. Now we need to have a multiverse strategy.
Fair enough. Tammy?
The things that I was talking about earlier, no, you can't ignore them. You can't. You really cannot.
Emphatically.
Like, no. In your next strategic 5-year plan, this has to be thought about. If you're gearing up to write one and doing that sort of next steps, no, you can't ignore what I talked about. It's just impossible. It's because it's changed. It's happening very rapidly around us. So
and in fairness,
sorry.
that change began to happen 10 years ago, right?
Yes,
so,
exactly. So yes. So and then now it's speeding up. So 10 years ago, yeah, you could have done it, but now the speed of which change is happening. And now with the what Art and Lee are talking about, that metaverse, and then 5G and Internet of Things, we need to get our metadata on the internet in an appropriate way so it works for us as a sector. So I encourage everyone here who's a presenter to demand from the federal government to build the right type of digital infrastructure for the sector.
Thank you for that. There's my pet peeve summarized. Lee, final comments. What can we ignore? What must we not ignore?
I mean, I'm with these guys. There's not much to ignore. It's here. It's not even coming. It's like right now, right here. But I would say a few things that I would suggest is to really utilize and get familiar with augmented reality, virtual reality. 360 video is not that tough to get into, and you can use them as social media tools. YouTube automatically, you can load in a 360 video. It automatically makes it so that it's viewable. Everything's optimized for immersive media now. So get your stuff out there, and you can do it. It doesn't have to cost that much. Get familiar with the setups that use these type of tools, because the artists are definitely using these type of tools. So be prepared to offer streaming of the production you are preparing. Hybrid is the future, and it allows more accessibility and more audience and more monetization for everybody. So consider offering a location-based venue presentation for digital performances. It'll help the actual theater, you'll use their space, as well as it will increase accessibility and your audience to lower the cost. And and I just think that when you're doing all that, just remember that this is tech, and tech is for us, and it's supposed to be a tool, and stick to those human-centric principles, and keep it cozy and safe and inclusive.
Very, very wise words to finish us off. Hey, thank you. This has been a pleasure to sort of twist my brain a bunch as well, and I'm sure everybody else's to some degree. This is the end of our time, so I want to just thank you for spending this hour and a half with us. Laurie or Frederic, either one of you will close us out from here, I believe.
Yeah, I am going to ask Frederic just to say a couple words, but I just want to thank Art, Tammy, and Lee so much for sharing your expertise and your experiences with us. Like, whoa, it's really amazing. It really actually is reassuring too, to have this information and to get a little glimpse into knowing what we need to know. So thank you so much for that. And Frederic is just going to, Frederic's with Capicoa, Frederic Julien, sorry. He's with Capicoa, and I just wanted to invite him to quickly just let us know what's upcoming with the Capicoa conference as it moves forward over the next 2 weeks, really.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you, Laurie, and Inga, and today's presenters, and all of the presenters in this wonderful Building a Digital Arts Nation conference. You've had some great content, great speakers throughout. I didn't get to see all of it. I'm still catching back on the recordings, I'm so happy that to see the kind of content that you are putting forward, because you are clearly steering in the same direction that we are at Kepakoa with the Link Digital Future Initiative. So the Kepakoa conference is happening now. We have a session on your digital presence. Let's improve it. It's taking place tomorrow at 1:30 Eastern, and it will propose many action items on some of the things that were discussed during this conference. So I'm hoping that some of you can join us. And I also dropped in the link, in the chat, a link to the series of Wikidata workshops that we are presenting along with Conseil Québécois du Théâtre and many other partners. So if you are trying to figure out how you can publish metadata about yourself for others to reuse, Wikidata is one place where you can do that. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Frederic. Appreciate that. And it was a pleasure partnering with you on this. And I do also want to thank the Canada Council for the Arts and their Digital Strategy Fund for their support over the last 3 years. And this is kind of the final event of the 3 years, but it's all saved to posterity. So if you want to check anything out again, or if you've missed things, Digital Arts Nation, it has been posted in the chat, but we'll post it again. A lot of that is a treasure trove of information, and it's a result of this project. So Inga manages that, so you know that it's got good stuff on it. So I just want to thank you all for joining us on this wonderful day, and I really appreciate your time and your brain power, and thanks very much, everyone, and we'll see you again sometime soon.
Thank you. It was fabulous.
Thanks, Lee.
Make it. Let's go.